Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. Today is Easy Language. We're going to talk about some of the Easy Language functionality that allows you to convert an indicator into a strategy. But before we jump into today's topic, let's go and take care of our introductions. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. It's always a pleasure to be talking about TradeStation, especially this area of easy language, which I find fascinating. The ability for you to take an idea and turn it into an indicator and then turn it into something that your trading platform can trigger signals and maybe have a strategy designed around that idea that you can back test against historical data. That whole area of customizing TradeStation to do what you want it to do, I think it's fascinating. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. But before we jump into today's topic, let me go back here to my PowerPoint. Let's go through some of the disclosures as well. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only. These are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, active trading is not suitable for everyone, and past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. We need to be aware of all these disclosures. If anybody needs a little bit more information about them, go to www.tradestation.com/important-information. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump over here to my TradeStation platform. And I am showing two custom indicators. Yeah, there are two custom indicators in here. One that is plotting the show me dots. So that cyan dot and the magenta dot that you see on my candlesticks, those are generated by a custom study. And the line right here at the bottom is also a custom study that I created in class. The video that I'm referring to, or the class that I'm referring to, is an Art of TradeStation that I did not very long ago. And Manolo is going to share that link with us here in class. Just in case you missed the class or the video that Manolo is going to share shows you how to create these custom tools, how to create the custom indicator, and how to create the custom show me. At the time that we were creating these indicators, these custom indicators, we ran out of time and I didn't have an opportunity to turn this idea into a strategy. So today, since the topic is turning an indicator into a strategy, then we're going to take this idea and do that precisely. How we can turn an indicator and turn it into a strategy. What I'm going to be doing today applies to anything on the TradeStation platform. You can do it on a custom idea like I'm going to show you today, or you can do it on something that is built into TradeStation. There are many indicators on the TradeStation platform that do not have a strategy that goes along with it. A lot of times, if you have an indicator, you at a certain point are curious about what would happen if you were to trade that idea going forward. Well, the backtesting tool in TradeStation allows you to take that idea and back test it against historical data to have a performance report on how the strategy did historically, to at least have an indication of what type of behavior it has. It may not be indicative of what it's going to do going forward, but at least you have an idea of something of a strategy that it's either working or not. All right. So yeah, this webinar is being recorded and Manolo's going to give you instructions how to access the class. All right, so the Vimeo link that he shared towards the top is the video that I was referencing. I don't know if you can give the title of that presentation and then the link, so that if anybody comes into class, they know that this is the title of the class, and the link that is under it is the link to that class, so that people know exactly what they're going to. All right, so let's talk about this idea and this indicator that we created in class. It's an indicator that I call real body, and it's not something that I created. This is just an idea that I've used in many examples, and I find interesting. So, in order to present the idea, let's talk about candlesticks and how they're created. A candlestick chart, of course, you're going to have green candles and red candles. The red candles are down candles, or candles that close lower than it's open. The prices went down. But the real body is the relationship between the open and the close. So these are significant prices that happen on trading activity. A lot of times, if you look at the high and the low, these are prices where the trading activity went, or trading activity happened, but the activity has retraced back to the body of the candle. When we look at a candle like this one, which is almost like a doji, but it has a very high wick. But the price retraced it back. There was some price rejection. So there was some buying pressure that actually sent the price higher than where it closed, but it didn't have enough steam or enough strength to maintain the trading activity at that level, and it actually dropped again. So what we're going to look at in this idea that I'm presenting here is the real body, the relationship between the opening price of that candle and the closing price. A lot of times that real body is going to be negative, as we pointed out. If the prices drop from where the price opened, we're going to consider that a negative real body, as opposed to a positive real body that from the time that it opened to the time that it closed, there is a positive price or there's an increase in price. Okay, so we're going to take that real body and that idea, because what we do in this indicator is that we take those bodies and we average them. For what reason? Well, it is obvious that if we have more positive real bodies than we do negative real bodies, that there's an inclination for the market activity to be going up, because of course those positive real bodies are when the prices are going up, and vice versa. If we have a higher concentration of negative real bodies, is because the prices have been dropping from their opening price, and there's an inclination for the prices to drop. That's exactly what this indicator is doing, and that's exactly what we're measuring with this line. Let me show you what we did in that class, and if anybody's interested in creating this custom tool, you can watch the video, pause it, do it at your own speed and create those custom tools if you'd like. Let's go ahead and edit the Easylanguage for this real body indicator to show you a few things that we did here. The first thing on line number 1 is we declared an input. Input are nice, or they create some very nice interfaces between your Easylanguage programming and the TradeStation platform. If you have something that you are going to want to adjust, depending on the market that you're looking at, and you consider some sort of a parameter to the calculation of an indicator, you may want to create an input for that. In this example, I created an input for length. In the calculation of this idea, I'm using 10 bars. So we did talk about creating an average of the real body calculation, positives and negatives. So this is a starting point. It's using 10 candlesticks and averaging them together. And then a variable, and this is something that I covered in that class as well. A variable is like a little container. It houses a snippet of formula, a calculation that you want to use inside your code, but rather than typing up this formula or this calculation over and over, what you do is you put that formula inside this small container, and then all you do is reference that little container's name, and it knows exactly what to do. So here I'm declaring a variable that's called the real body. Real body, and this is something that I covered in that class as well. Real body is a word in Easylanguage that appears in black. All the coloring that you see here, the blue, the red, the green, it's automatically set by Easylanguage. Is a way of Easylanguage recognizing what that text is doing. And when it's black, it's because the word does not exist in the language, And it makes sense because if you're declaring a word, you want to make sure that the word that you're using does not conflict with anything that is already reserved by the language. So in my declaration statement, I'm always looking for words that remain black, which means that they're foreign to the language. In this case, it's real body. It does not exist as a word in the dictionary per se, but I'm able to declare it. And that's what I'm doing here in line number 3. I'm declaring a variable, which is going to be named real body. And that variable is initialized as a numeric variable. So that 0 that you see inside parentheses is just telling Easylanguage, yes, I'm declaring this word, I'm going to start using it, and the value that is going to be contained in that variable is a number. All right. And then once we declare the variable, all we have to do is assign the formula to that variable. What is the formula? Close minus open. Take a look at the word close and open. They're blue, different than the ones we just talked about, because the blue words are reserved by Easylanguage and they have a specific meaning. So when Easylanguage comes across the word close, it knows that it has to reference the closing price of the candle. And when it comes across the word open, it knows that it has to reference the opening price of the candle. So yes, we're taking the closing price and subtracting the opening price from it. And that number is going to be stored in real body. Makes it very simple because from this point forward, I just have to say real body. And this indicator knows that it has to take the close minus the open. There's a couple of things going on here. I have a series of plot statements. This one on line number 7 is a plot that I commented out. So the forward slashes right here allow me to comment it out, meaning that it turns that line into a text annotation. Easylanguage doesn't read it, it just skips it. And sometimes as an Easylanguage programmer, you're gonna see yourself making notes to yourself and putting some reminders inside of the code that tell you exactly what your thinking process was at the time, so you know what some pieces are. So I didn't want to delete it. I just put a double forward slash just to comment this line out. But the plot 1 was just plotting real body. Whatever the raw calculation of close minus open would return, it would plot those values on the chart. And I commented it out because it was a very staticky line, very jagged. There was no clear direction. I can turn it on again just so that you can see what I mean by that. Let me verify this. Let me go back to my chart. Yeah, and you see the red line that you see right here below the yellow line is the raw calculation. There's no clear direction. There's no relationship between the red line and what's happening here on the markets. To a certain extent, yes, anytime that you have a spike to the positive, you have an up bar, and anytime you have a spike to the negative, you have a red bar. But if I'm trying to identify trends and use this as a way of triggering signals, this red line may be all over the place. It doesn't help me as a trader. I did need the calculation of close minus the open, but I really don't need it as a plot on my indicator. So what I did is I commented it out by putting a double forward slash. Let me verify that. What I do need is 0. I need 0 because this is an indicator that oscillates between negative and positive values, and having a 0 line just makes sense in this type of indicator. And I also wanted to create an average. Notice that I have real body as a parameter to the average because that's the value that I wanted to average, and I have to provide a length. So I'm averaging the real body values by 10, and I'm calling that RB average. So yes, what I'm interested in is the average of those values, negative and positive. And I know that, let me go back here to my chart, that if there is a concentration of big positive bars like I have here, then my indicator line is going to be on the positive side. Anytime the yellow line here is above the red line, this is a positive value. But over here, I do have a concentration of negative candles or red candles, and that's why the average is turning on the negative side. So now the indicator becomes a little bit more sensitive to what's happening to the market. And to enhance the visual, what we did is we also turned this indicator into a show me so that we knew where the crossover or which bar or which candle is the one where the crossover happened. And you can see that when the yellow line crosses from negative to positive, it is aligned with a cyan dot. And whenever there is a crossover from a positive value to a negative value, it's aligned with a magenta dot. That is the nature of a show me. And we talk about that type of indicator on that presentation that Manolo shared a link for earlier. So it does give us an idea of how to start with a simple idea and turn it not only into an indicator, but also as a show me so we can see historical crossovers. One of the things that we did to this indicator also is that we programmed some alerts. The indicator right here, as you can see, if real body crosses over 0, then alert. And if real body crosses under 0, then alert. So whenever you have that crossover on that indicator, moving from positive to negative or negative to positive, you're going to get an alert. The only problem, and this is one of the limitations of the alert, not a limitation. So it's just something that you need to be aware of. When you use the alert inside of Easylanguage, those alerts only get triggered in real time. So whenever the current bar meets the criteria, it doesn't see any of the historical alerts. And that's one of the reasons why we create a show me that goes along the indicator. So in addition to, let me go back here to the chart. In addition to having the indicator here, I also have the show me that tells me every historical instance where the indicator crossed, to the upside and the downside. And what I'm trying to identify here are areas that would present, good trades. And, in some areas, of course, I have some significant, good trades. For example, here we had a crossover to the negative side, and then the market just tanked until we had enough positive bars that the value of the indicator moved over to the positive side, and then we have a cyan dot. But these two dots right here, it's very clear that that was a good trade. Many times we have indecision in the market. We have the indicator flipping back and forth between negative and positive, and there's no clear direction. And that's why you see back-to-back those cyan magenta dots, because there's no clear trend. But when the market is trending, like in this area right here, we see a significant presence of negative bars and the indicator turns negative. It's a good trending indicator, not so much on a sideways market. But it's an idea, and we're able to plot it on the chart. Does it need work? Does it need refinement? Of course it does. Any idea or any trading signal that you can think of at any given moment needs additional work, needs refinement. And as I said earlier, this strategy works really well when the market trends, but when it doesn't, you get a lot of bad signals, back-to-back false signals, because there's no clear trend. However, what we want to do is to be able to test this and say, okay, if I had traded every single time that this indicator had crossed over, how would it perform? Well, so let's do that, right? Let's turn this idea into a strategy that we can work with and test it against historical data. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to come over here to my Easylanguage development environment. This is the part that I didn't have time to do when I did that other class on creating custom tools on Easylanguage. But here, I'm going to take this indicator, I'm going to turn it into a strategy. The calculations are going to be very much similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the text or the code and paste it into a strategy. And then I'm going to have to edit some things here and there because they don't apply to a strategy. But I'm copying everything, doing Control-C to copy. And I'm going to come over here to File, New, and I'm going to select a strategy. It's very important that if you're going to create a strategy, that you're careful in terms of which document or which document type you're creating. Because if you create an indicator, let's say the indicator has no way of generating an order. So that's a functionality that is reserved to strategies. And if you want that functionality, you have to make sure that you select strategy. And the same applies to a show me or an indicator. If you want to mark historical candles with those dots that you saw on my screen, that is a specific show me, and you'd have to create a show me if you want that type of analysis technique. Let me just turn my AC down a little bit, because in a minute I'm going to start shaking here from cold. Okay, so I'm going to go here to strategy. All right, and this strategy is going to be exclamation JN real body cross. And I'm going to say LESE. If you're familiar with TradeStation strategies, you know that LE and SE stand for long entry and short entry. So the strategy that we're going to work with enters in both directions, long and short. And then we're probably going to combine this strategy with some built-in position management functionality that we can use on any strategy that we create. Okay, I'm going to set the template to none. There's multiple templates here that give you some preset syntax and some text around the syntax, just to guide you and provide you sort of a way to get started, like a boilerplate. For now, we're just going to say none because we just want an empty document. We have some code that we're going to paste in here. So I'm going to click OK here, and I'm going to do Control V to paste the code. All right. So some of the things that don't work in strategies are plot statements. So plot 2, plot 1, and plot 3 do not work. In fact, if I try to verify, the first thing that it highlights is plot 2. Everybody saw that? I clicked on the verification little check mark. It highlights plot 2. And right here at the bottom, it says this word not allowed in a strategy. Very clear. So I have to come here and remove all those 3 lines. I could have, commented them out with a double forward slash, but for this strategy, I know that I won't be able to use plot statements at all. So why not delete them from the get-go, right? So I am using this calculation. I need another variable. Since I removed the plot statement that had the average, I'm going to create another variable that's going to be called RB AVG, because I want another variable that contains the average, not only the raw calculation of the real body, but also the average. And I'm going to say RB AVG. Remember, this is a made up word. This is something that I'm introducing to the language. And I'm going to say that RB AVG is going to be the average. We saw average on my other indicators. I open up parentheses. The average, by the way, for those that are just looking at Easylanguage for the first time, average is a function. And notice how it comes up in a sort of magenta or purple, reddish color, right? And average is just a snippet of Easylanguage that has been pre-programmed for us. I mean, Easylanguage has over 400 unique user functions that you can utilize. And it's just a matter of typing it in and providing the parameters that it needs. The average function, for example, it needs 2 parameters. And those 2 parameters are the value that you're trying to average and for how many periods that average is going to be calculated. So what I want the average to be calculated on is the real body. Where did I get that name? From here, the first variable. I'm just plugging in here because that's what I want to calculate the average on. And then I add a comma, and the second parameter is how long. Remember that at the beginning I said that the inputs, it's like a very nifty kind of interface that allows you to change the parameters on the fly on the front end, on the TradeStation platform, so you don't have to change the Easylanguage code all the time. So length is the number of candlesticks that I'm using. So I'm just going to type in length, close the parentheses, and that's it. I end the statement with a semicolon. Notice that every single line ends with a semicolon because Easy Language expects that in order to know that that's the end of that statement and it's going to go on to something different. So now I have my two variables, real body and RBAVG. RBAVG is the average of the real body. Next, right here, I have some alert conditions that I'm going to be using for my order generation. So let me open up these two lines. If the real body, in this case, I'm not going to be using the real body. I'm going to use the RBAVG because that's the line that I'm most interested in. I want to see where the average, if you remember on my trade station, this is the average, the yellow line. So I'm interested in knowing when the yellow line crosses over and under. When it crosses over 0, that's bullish, right? I don't want to alert. Alert also is a word that doesn't really work in a strategy. The strategy doesn't generate alerts in this manner. You have to go somewhere else. But here, if the RBAVG crosses over 0, then I'm going to say buy next bar at market. You may be asking yourself, why buy next bar and not buy now? Well, the strategies by default evaluate the strategy conditions at the close of the bar. On this particular example, where we're looking at real body, we do technically want to wait until the closing of the candle just to determine how big the real body is. I mean, that's the nature of this calculation, the relationship between the open and the close. And if you're generating a trade intra bar, or what the bar is still building, you don't have a real determination if the candle is going to be positive or negative. So this type of strategy has to wait until the close of the bar. It evaluates, the conditions, and then it says, well, if the condition is true, buy next bar. The next bar will be next tick. So there's no delay. This strategy idea needs that, close that bar calculation in order to generate the trade. And that's why we say buy next bar at market. Could we create a strategy that buys before the close of the bar or intra bar? Yes, that's something else you can do. We do plenty of classes on strategy automation where we teach you how to do something called intra bar order generation and explain some of the details there. So stay tuned to some of those classes. They're going to be scheduled eventually. Also, if you're looking for something now, I'm not sure that I'm going to talk about Video Station for a moment, but let me go here to my Trade Station. Let me open up another workspace and go to Apps and Video Station. This is an app that we don't talk about much, but I'm going to highlight it today because it's a way for you to access additional Trade Station videos that are on YouTube. This application that's called Video Station, it's connected to YouTube, our YouTube channel, through a plugin, but it organizes the videos in a different way than YouTube does. And I find that it's easier to find the videos you're looking for by just going here inside the desktop into Video Stations. Let me open this up. Resize this window. All right, let me make this bigger. Okay, so I'm using the control and the mouse wheel to give me a little bit more of size. This is a web browser plugin. So whatever you see here is web controlled, and it serves the videos that are on YouTube. But what I wanted to show you is over here on the top, we have a menu, and under Masterclass, we have our technical analysis, strategy elements, and leveraging Easy Language series. We also have David Russell here on market trends. And then you have Easy Language Answered, which we're going to pick up eventually. Easy Language Answered was a very special class because we had our in-house expert on Easy Language, and he would address more advanced questions in Easy Language. And eventually we're going to pick up that class again. For now, you can access videos, And if I go here to strategy elements, I see all the strategy elements presentations. And here's the video that I was talking about, intrabar auto generation, look inside bar. So you can click on this video if you're interested in creating strategies that use intrabar auto generation. This is an older video. We always cycle through all the different classes. So if you do want to watch a live presentation, eventually we'll come around to this topic. But if you want to watch something that is archived, just come over here and watch the videos. But use the Video Station application as a collection of all the video presentations in TradeStation. Here you have getting started classes, anything that's recently uploaded. If you're looking for third-party events, you can go to the events page, or in Art of TradeStation, you can find those here as well. All right. Let me go back to what I was talking about. So let me go back to my Easylanguage, and let's do the other side. If real body crosses under 0, then sell short, next bar at market. All right, let's verify this. That's all you need. The sell and buy are enclosed in an if-then condition. So it only buys or sells if the condition is true. And our idea on the indicator that we created, we wanted to wait until the crossover happened for the strategy to generate a trade. If I put the strategy on the chart the way that it is, it's going to find every single instance of the strategy, or every single time the indicator would have triggered a buy or a sell order. Let's go ahead and check it out. I go here to my chart. This is a treasury note, a 10-year treasury note futures at TY. Let's go to something different. Let me go here to, let's try Apple. Apple trends a lot, so I would expect, this have a lot of back-to-back signals, but let's go ahead and see. The whole idea about historical back testing is that you can use it on any instrument that you're trading. So let me go here to studies, click on add strategy, and towards the top is going to be my exclamation real body. Here it is. Exclamation real body cross LESE. I'm going to click OK. I'm not going to change any of the parameters. I'm just going to click OK. And this strategy, as you can see, on this significant crossover from negative, I say significant because it had been negative for several days. All of a sudden it turns positive, and then we are in a trade. Now, what type of trade this is? This is a long trade, and we can see the blue arrow in it. Now this, let me just think about this for a moment, because we covered, let me put my glasses on. We covered 100, we bought 100, we sold 100, and we shorted 100. Why did all that happen on this bar? Just a little bit. Oh, let me look at my code again. Maybe that's where the problem is. Oh, I see where the problem is. I'm not sure if you guys were able to catch the problem, but on my first condition, I used the average. On my second condition, I'm using the real body. And that's why my signals were not aligning properly. And when I was on the chart, I was seeing, well, why do I have a blue arrow and a red arrow right here on the same candle? It seems like it's generating two trades. It should have just only generated the blue arrow or the long entry. And that's what threw me off. And I had to go back to the code and say, why am I getting red signals there? It's because it's using another line that is not even visible on this indicator. Remember that other red line that we removed? The one that had the raw real body value? That's the one that red signal is using based on my code. So what I need to do here to make it match, the show me signals, is use the RBAVG. Okay, so now we should be on track. Let's verify one more time. I mean, anytime that you make changes to the code, you have to verify it again. Let's go back here to the code. I'm sorry, to the platform and see what this looks like. Okay, so now it's cleaner. You can see that on the crossover to the positive side, we see a blue signal. Okay, that turned into a profitable trade. How do I know that? Because the dotted line connecting that entry with the next entry is blue. That's profitable trade. But then right here, we get a crossover to the negative side that only lasted for a couple bars. So we got a short trade, then we went over to a long trade, then we went over to a short trade a couple days later, and then we went over to a long trade. So over here, we had a few back-to-back signals that generated losses. I'm not sure if you're able to notice, but the dotted line connecting those entries is red. So short trades, but they were losing trades. And of course, that's going to eat up some of the profits that we made in this long trade. But looking at the historical trading activity, we're going to see a lot of that. Whenever the market trends, is that when we see these good blue dotted lines, maybe we need to adjust the calculation. I'm not sure if you notice what I'm seeing, but it's a little late at getting in and a little late at getting out. For example, it's not optimized here. You see that there's a big peak over here. Look at the angle of this uptrend versus the angle of entry versus the exit. So there's some work to be done here and some refinement, but this is the type of things that allow you to see what the strategy is capable of doing. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the report. I know everyone is itching to see how much money it lost or how money it made based on the strategy concept. And you know, as soon as you have a strategy in place that has signals generated and you see these dotted lines connecting entries and exits, you are ready to pull up a strategy performance report. Data, strategy performance report, and let's take a look at this. All right. So if I look at the date range up here, it's important that we know what is it that we're back testing. And this is a daily chart of Apple going back 5 years, so from 2018 to 2023. This collapse button allows you to reduce the number of stats that are available in the report. Now, a lot of times you're going to want to drill down and look at variations of certain calculations, but for the most part, you want something that is reduced, you know, and the one that has more detail, you know, you need to have a better understanding on how the calculations are made. For example, we have a total net profit, we have a select total net profit, and we have an adjusted total net profit. Maybe you don't need all those different variations in the calculation, you know? The total net profit is the one that I'm interested in, but these other ones, they remove outliers or what the report considers outliers. So the calculation is a little bit different, and or at least I reserve those when I'm trying to drill down and take a look at the profitability of the strategy. So using the collapse button here reduces the view, kind of hides some of the extra calculations and gives me, you know, more information that I'm interested in. For example, how many trades were generated? In 5 years, 155 trades. So there's about 30 trades per year. Not a very active strategy, but you know, it just gives you an understanding on what's being generated. There's only a 40% profitability here. So out of the 155 trades, 62 were winning trades, but 93 were losing trades. Let's take a look at Mac's largest losing, largest winning. So largest winning trade, 2,400. Largest losing trade, 1,520. Okay. We can start tweaking the strategy. I can work with the sensitivity of the moving average. Maybe doing a moving average that is sensitive to more recent data, like an exponential moving average, would make this a little bit different. Now, how do I change the simple moving average to an exponential moving average? Let's go ahead and take a look at the Easylanguage code. And what I'm going to do here, very simple. I'm using the average function, and all I need to do is add an X at the very beginning. That's it. Very simple, right? Instead of using a simple average, and I'm using an exponential moving average, and the name of the function changes. Let me verify that. But I'm also going to verify the indicator because I want the indicator to match my strategy just for the visual. They're not tied in any way. But if you want the indicator to be aligned with your strategy, sometimes I make the changes across the board, including the showing. Let's go ahead and turn this into an X average and verify that. So let's go back to my trade station. Take a look at the angle of that trade. It changed significantly, right? Now we have an uptrend and we're staying really close to that trend. So it did have a direct effect. Now, of course, by increasing the sensitivity of that moving average, by making it an exponential moving average, what happens when the market is sideways is a little bit more sensitive as well. So you're going to get more back-to-back false signals. And we can see that here in this yellow line. You can see how often, the line moves from positive to negative. So maybe, yeah, it's an interesting idea to test other things, but then you may realize that it's probably not the best approach for this particular strategy. Let's go ahead and check the performance report though. Data, strategy performance report. Far more trades, 223 trades, and it turned the strategy into a losing strategy. So that change, even though it did make a few trades better, it actually introduced more losing trades. Take a look. Winning trades 73, winning trades 73, losing trades 149 losing trades. And the largest losing trade here is 1,355. Maybe, and this is just a maybe, we may have to introduce some trade management functionality so that we don't have these trades that are out of control, like the 1,350. Maybe introducing a stop loss would be great, right? So let's go ahead over here to my code. Let's go here to the strategy. And let's do set stop loss. Notice how that word turns blue. So something that's reserved by the language, and you can do a straight set stop loss, generates a stop loss here. And in parentheses, I have to set the stop loss amount. And I'm going to set this to 5. If I'm not really sure what that 5 means, what I'm thinking of is it's 5 points. But to be sure that it's using 5 points, because if I'm new to Easylanguage, I don't know what the default is. There is a way for you to set. How is it that you're setting your amounts for these built-in stops? Set, what is it? Set position. No. Set. Sometimes I go blank, Set stop share. Okay, set stop share. If I just do set stop share, that's a reserved word that tells Easylanguage that the calculations that I'm going to do from this point forward are on a per share basis. So if you put in a 5 in here for the set stop loss, it's going to do 5 points per share. If I'm trading 100 shares, which is what the strategy trades by default, that set stop loss is going to be $500. Let me verify that. Let me go back here to the strategy. Do we have any stop losses being triggered? Let's go ahead and see. I don't see, I opened up the chart just to see a little bit more detail. Okay, here we have a stop loss. Everybody sees it. Right here on this, when it crossed lower, it generated a short trade right here. I can see the entry price by clicking on the background and holding. You can see that it shorted at 142.19 and it exited at 149.50. 149.50 was the opening price. It's just we were in the wrong side of the market. We entered a short trade. A few days later, the market opened so much higher that it got us out at the best price that it could, which was the opening price of that bar. So this was not exactly a $500 loss. It was more than that. And we can check that in the strategy performance report. Let's go to data, strategy performance report. We still have a losing strategy. We kind of, reduced the amount of the total loss. But if I go to my trade list, these are the trades. It starts from the very beginning of the historical back test. But let me go to the very end. If I look at that trade, which is right here, this trade happened on December 7th. So on December 7th, let me scroll up here a little bit. Here it is. December 7th, it sold short at 142.19. It bought to cover at 149.50. That is a $731 loss. So it's a loss that exceeded our stop loss, but that's the way that the market works. Whenever we have these gaps that are up or down excessively from what the price that you entered, of course, you're going to get stopped. But if I go over here to my performance summary, I can see the largest loss, and you can see the largest losing trade. I clicked on, these are all hyperlinks that open up help documentation to explain what they are. But you can see how the largest losing trade is now 731, which is that trade that we just looked at. What a coincidence, right? But we were able to manage that loss. It was, higher than 1,000 before, and maybe that did, very, very well on our strategy. Another thing that we can introduce is probably, let me go back here to my code. We can introduce trailing stops, set dollar trail. Set trail amount, no. Set trailing, trailing. Okay, let's see. Trailing, set dollar. Okay, there we go. Set dollar trailing. That's what it is. Ooh, sometimes, if I look at, when you start typing Easylanguage, one of the things that I use is this little box that pops up. It's supposed to give you results on anything that you type. It's going to match whatever words it finds in the dictionary, and it's going to show them to you. And sometimes that'll refresh your memory on how it is typed. Notice that it comes up in blue. I was looking for something that came up in blue because blue words are the ones that Easylanguage recognizes. So set dollar trailing, I can say to set it to, let me do 5 again. So what it does is that it's a trail amount. Whenever you have a drop of 5 points for the from the highest peak, it's going to get your position out. Let's verify that. Let's go back to my strategy. Oh, you can see what happened right here. Oh, and the trailing stop right here. So on this trade, it actually went long. It cuts me short a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit too sensitive. I would have liked for the trade to kept ongoing. But at this point, it calculates the profit from the highest high. And then as soon as it hits that, $5 trailing that I set, then it's going to get me out. Curious to know what this did to my strategy. Let me go to data and strategy performance report. So notice how my net profit is now 1,000. Not a strategy that I would even think about trading, because this is more like a break-even strategy. If you look at the gross profit, the strategy made $31,000, but it lost $30,000. So it's like a break-even strategy. So you traded for nothing for 5 years. So not a strategy that I would trade, but at least, whatever I'm doing, it's improving the overall profitability of the strategy. I'm not really excited about this because, yeah, this is, even though it's going on the right, it's going the right way. It's not really, the numbers are not really something that I would find, that would give me confidence that this strategy would behave well. You can use, I know that we're running out of time, but in terms of strategy development and creating a strategy for from an indicator, I like setting up inputs because it gives you this optimization engine or access to the optimization engine. Like for example, on the stop loss and the dollar trailing amount, I set those two to 5. But who's to tell me that those are optimal values for this historical backtest? Let me show you what I mean by that. I can go here to the code again. And rather than hard code that 5 in there, I can declare them as an input. So I'm going to come up here and say stop amount. I'm going to set it to 5, and trail amount, I'm going to set it to 5. Notice that I'm creating words that don't come up in blue. These are custom words that I'm declaring as inputs. So instead of using a hard-coded 5 here for the set stop loss, I'll use my input name. Pretty much the same thing that the strategy did before, but now I have these inputs that I can optimize. Let me show you what I can do here. I can go back to my strategy, click on customize here on the right, customize the stop amount, and say, go ahead and test from $3 all the way to 20. Yeah, why not? We can test in increments of 1. So it's going to test a stop loss value of 3, 4, 5, all the way to 20. And I'm going to do the same thing here for the trail amount. I'm going to optimize it and go from 1 to 20. So that's going to generate a series of 360 tests that are going to be run through and give me optimal values. It's going to run that very quickly. And if I go back to the strategy, let me go ahead and double click here. I can see how the optimal values that were selected are a $3 stop loss amount and a $4 trail amount, slightly different than what I had selected previously. So I wasn't that far off in terms of, optimal parameters. But now if I go to data and I go to the strategy performance report, then again, not a good strategy, almost a break-even strategy. You can see the gross profit and the gross loss, but at least, you have an understanding of which parameters make sense and which doesn't. In fact, I can even go here to the optimization report and see, let me format the font here so it's bigger. So you can see some of these values. This is sorted by test number. Let's sort by profit. There we go. So you can see how, well, in this case, the higher numbers on the stop. Interesting. This is the short entry. These are the two stops that I'm monitoring. But you can see that for one, the 4 provided the best results overall. So clear understanding of what the parameters do to a strategy. And that's how optimization should be used. You should have an understanding on which parameters work and which ones don't. All right. All right, guys, that's my class for today. Hopefully you walk away with something. Remember that any idea that you bring into TradeStation can be turned into a strategy. Well, first you have to visualize it. So I would recommend you create an indicator like we had that, real body indicator at the bottom here, going from positive to negative, negative to positive. Once you visualize the idea and you say, well, this is it's interesting. Let's see if we can generate a strategy that follows those signals and then generate a report. That's the way that if an idea works or not. Because if you apply the idea to historical data, that's a clear indication of what the strategy could do. Not a guarantee, but at least, if you find a strategy that historically has proven to give you consistent good results, then you walk into the market with a little bit more confidence about what the strategy may do going forward, okay? So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in a future class. Goodbye, everyone. Great having you today.